I want to take a few minutes to talk about something I find super important when it comes to health and wellness and navigating this corporate world we live in. And I call that, and I did not come up with this, I'm not sure where I first heard it, but conscious consumerism. Conscious consumerism is actively buying goods that hopefully are doing more better for the world than bad for the world. I hate to get into that dualistic thought of good and bad, but I feel like there is something defining about whether we are being destructive to nature or whether we are promoting nature. So conscious consumerism starts with I think the biggest thing is that you're participating in multiple times a day that you're buying is food. If you choose to buy those Cheetos or Doritos or McDonald's, then you know that those companies do not give one shit about nature. That's not their goal. They may even put natural or 100% natural or something like that on their logos whenever they go to sell something. But we have to be real that these guys are about making money. And to be real about organic companies and non-GMO and all that, those guys still want to make money. They need to make a profit so that they can continue serving the public. But we can either choose to feed our income, our monies that we worked our asses off for, that we struggle for, to places like McDonald's that are just going to feed the destruction of nature, or we can choose to, if you have to eat out or something, there's not saying that these places are the best, but I know that they're doing better than McDonald's, like Chipotle or Panera or something like that, where those guys are choosing better sourced ingredients. But ultimately, you want to be working towards consuming with the least amount of effect on nature. So to get meat, maybe the most nature conscious way to actually do that is to go out and hunt that creature for yourself. And beyond that is then to process that creature yourself so that you're not paying someone else to do it, so that you don't have to drive somewhere else to do it. Because whenever we buy organic meats or grass-fed meats, those meats still have to be sent from wherever they were farmed, and fossil fuels would surely burn to get them to you, and then there's refrigerants being used during the time that they're being stored. And so I think meat is like one of the easiest ones to think about when it comes to food, but also vegetables and fruits and those other goodies. When it comes to pesticides and herbicides, if you're buying non-GMO organic produce, then you're supporting companies that are trying to make an effort to do things that are not going to destroy the soil for future generations, so they can't use that soil, that aren't just going to pay for some fellow to fly over and spray crop dust a bunch of fields with pesticides and herbicides so that it blows into the neighboring people's yards and into people's lungs and into the woods and kills the bees. And I don't have to tell you that story. If you're looking at this video, then you have considered, or you know that there are better options, and you know that that there is an issue with the destruction of nature. And so whenever you make a decision, I'm an advocate for moderation, and I'm an advocate for easing into things so that you don't get too turned off by it, by just going 100% organic all at once, or also the fact that may be quite costly. But whenever you make an excuse to do something, and I have to remind myself of this too, whenever I buy chicken in the store or something like that, whenever you make a decision to buy something that is not what you want to hold to, not what you want to be at a standard that is promotion of nature versus destruction of nature, you make an excuse for yourself like, well, it's only this one time, or well, I'm in a specific scenario. Maybe it's not avoidable, but we do have to know it's bigger than us. And if we're making an excuse for ourselves, what we're really doing is costing the future generations, costing our children, costing all of these beautiful creatures that live out here in the woods. It's just kind of sad if you think about it, where we just neglect everything else besides ourselves, and it's quite self-centered. And I do this myself. That's why I can talk about it. It's because I can relate to it. So when you go to buy things, just try to buy that best product you can, and then think about moving away from where you actually have to buy things to where you can procure or cultivate your own things. Like right here is some dandelion greens, and this is sold in the store, but it's likely that you guys live in a place where dandelion greens are too, and you can pick them nice and young like this. They're tasty. You don't need to go to the store and buy the spinach that's inside of a box that's plastic, that was harvested 500 miles away and took all that effort to grow, whenever this just grew right here without any effort at all. So just be thinking about that, moving into a place where consuming with monies like that doesn't have to be an option. And maybe you never reach that point, but as long as you're kind of working towards it, then what we're doing is promoting nature, we're respecting nature, and we're respecting life, everything else around us. We're respecting other people, because people are hurting out there, and you may be hurting, and a lot of my family's hurting from environmental factors, not being fed the correct food from the get-go, from being a baby up, and having a compromised immune system. Again, I don't want to get too lectury on this, but just consider conscious consumerism if you're going to be buying, and this is a reminder for myself too, and paint yourself out a little spectrum where you're currently at, where maybe you don't want to be buying Cheetos and Doritos and McDonald's every day, and maybe where that end goal that's not even attainable, like being a wild man out in the woods just eating only wild harvested foods, and just make sure you're working towards that. Have you guys heard of conscious consumerism before? Can someone tell me where I heard that first? Yeah, I'm not. Maybe others have spoke on it. I've really not given it much of a Google, but it's something that constantly comes to my mind as I go to the grocery and I decide to buy something. So maybe I can help instill that in a few other people's minds. Goodbye. So here's an example of that conscious consumerism that I'm myself trying to move into a bit more. There are a bunch of blackberry and raspberry bushes growing around here, and I'm going to harvest some of these because currently I buy raspberry leaves from Traditional Medicines, pretty good tea company, but I buy it for my partner Alexis because it's a good tonic for pregnant ladies. And here's the blackberry. Woo! The blackberry plant. It's got a bunch of small hairs on it, or small thorns. The leaf structure, and there's I say blackberry, I meant raspberry, but there are a bunch of blackberry around here, and blackberry's got larger thorns. So again, this is an example of that. I'm just gonna harvest these leaves There's so many around here. Like these grow because this place was recently logged, I guess maybe like 10 to 15 years ago, and there's a lot of things have been the underbrush has to come back up, so then it can feed the soil, so then larger trees can grow. But there's a bunch of deer running around here, and the deer will eat the tops of, like they eat the tops of this, I could tell, eat the tops of the trees. So yeah, it's for the promotion of, these plants grow for the promotion of nature, and I can enjoy that. They're not the funnest to get pricked by, but I will get a bunch of these leaves for some fresh raspberry leaf tea for my partner Alexis, and for our unnamed baby.